online can hear me, welcome. Computer over there, and welcome everyone else who's come on for this. I'm going to remove the mask just a little bit, just to make it easier for everyone, but I'll try and be as safe as possible. So yeah, this is quite a casual session. Basically, we're going to invite your questions. Most of you, if you come to this, it's because you have some concerns about what happens if your visa stamp runs out in the next few months, or whenever it's arrived and when it's going to run out. The good news is there are definitely options. Whether they work for everybody, that will depend on your unique situation. So, I'm going to introduce ourselves quickly. Sorry. Is there anyone listening online that can make sure you listening for them? Make sure they can hear me. I think they could hear fine when he did the test before. You can check on the chat if there's anyone on the chat that's asking about that.
I've got it up.
Yeah.
No one is asking.
We're just going to check. All right, cool. So we'll run through a couple of the options, and then we'll take questions from you guys. Going to introduce ourselves as well. I'm Tom from ExpatHub. We are essentially a company based in Tbilisi, run by expats, with also Georgian staff, and we help other expats and foreigners who come to Georgia solve all of their problems. Everything that we can solve, we try to solve for them. Tax and residency issues and pretty much anything that affects expats, we try to help with that. My colleague Nino here is one of our senior advisors and accountants as well, and she helps with a lot of the residency application processes. So anything I can't answer, although I think I can answer most questions, Nino will be able to step in and help with the actual practical part of the process that she handles on a regular basis. So talk about a couple of the main events quickly, and then we can get some feedback from you guys about what we should continue with when we're talking about this. So main thing in Georgia, but on the 65 days that you get when you get stamped in. One, if you qualify, is to get a residence permit, at which point you can stay here indefinitely and renew that residence permit. So if you're actually someone who's looking to stay more than a few extra months beyond 365 days, wants to stay a bit more long term, then that's probably the best option for you if you qualify. The option I would say, but probably the one that people feel a bit hesitant about, which is overstaying the visa and paying a fine when they leave. So the fine is not huge. If you overstay by 90 days, it's 180 lari, so it's really not huge at all. If you overstay by more than 90 days, then it's 360 lari. And in theory, there is no penalty. You will not be banned from coming back into the country. You will not be blacklisted from coming back into the country as long as you pay the fine. But there are a few small technical details regarding if you are caught in Georgia with an invalid stamp and you get reported for some reason. At that point, they might deport you specifically. If you get deported, then you would be banned for 2 to 5 years. Of course, they're not checking all their passports right now. Back in March, they were checking passports during the state of emergency. So that is the only concern with this process at the moment, is if they bring back state of emergency and your passport gets checked and your stamp is invalid. At that point, you might be concerned that you could get deported. And if you want to stay in Georgia longer, then having a 2 to 5 year ban from Georgia is probably not something you're looking forward to. So that's the one concern. Right now, it's something we probably shouldn't be concerned about, but it could be, if they bring back a state of emergency, something that we want to worry about. The other option, which is the one we're trying to get people to test at the moment, but it's a little bit tricky to find guinea pigs for, is actually applying for one of the entry permits before you leave, such as the business travel permit or the remote worker permit. You're already here on that one, great. But of course, because it only started in August, most people have arrived on that. They're not going to leave and come back at this point, which is why we haven't really found many people willing to do it. But we have a few people who have spoken to us, interested in the concept, because their visas are actually about to run out, because they got here right at the start of the year. So theoretically, there's nothing on the legal side of it that we can find that would mean you couldn't apply for it before you leave and then just come back a few days later across the border. But yes, we haven't tested it yet, and we hope to do that quite soon because we're actually working with some clients on that. And the other option is the extension that may or may not be offered by the government. At the moment, it does run until the 31st of December this year. So if your visa if it expires before that date, then you do have until the 31st of December as an automatic extension. Although when that was first released, they said that only applied to people from high-risk countries such as the UK and USA, because they didn't want you to have to go back to a high-risk country. They have confirmed more recently, though not completely officially, that they are offering that extension to all people here, all foreigners here on the visa stamp. So worst case scenario right now, we do all have at least until December 31st without having to have one of the other options. It's useful to know, though, at the moment that if you wanted to get the residency permit, you have to do that 40 days before your extension expires, which means 40 days before the 31st of December. That's about a week and a half from now. So if you wanted to do that legally, unless they extend that period past the 31st of December, then you would have to think about like taking action on that this week to actually get that done. Or of course, if your visa lasts a bit longer until next year, then you have a few months to start on that, depending on when you actually arrive in the country. So those are the main 4 things that you can do right now. Would like to hear from you guys, what sort of position you're in, what sort of concerns you have, what extra things I can talk about. I can talk about specifically getting the residence permit, or any of those other options. We can sort of try and answer your questions.
Yeah, the residency permit. I think that's probably
also keen.
the residency permit. What's involved?
Okay, that's the main one that everyone wants to get started on that. Okay, great.
Sorry, just said the extension to the 1st of December or
31.
31.
Yeah, 31st. Residence permit. There are different types of residence permit you can get. We actually have a handout here which explains the work residency permit, because this is the one that's probably most applicable to most people, but it will also depend on whether you already started a business here in Georgia and have been declaring your income. If you're here and not declaring your income, then it's unlikely you'll qualify for this unless you can, unless your visa stamp is a few more months. If you're having to apply for this week and you haven't already opened a business here or couldn't get a business to sponsor you to stay here, then you'd be very unlikely to get the work residence permit. But that's the one for most people who have a few more months and have a reasonable income here. If they haven't started their Georgian business set up and want to, especially if you become a taxpayer, which anyone who's been here more than 183 days this year will be a Georgian tax resident this year automatically. That's the law here. Then this is definitely an option. It's one of the ones that we do for most of our clients. It's the most popular option because it's the most straightforward. It's the easiest to get approved on. If you have the income requirements and you have a business here or a business sponsorship here, then it's very straightforward to actually get approved for this once you follow all the steps. So that's the one that I have printed information that I'll hand out to everybody. There's a lot of very specific steps. When it comes to other options, there are student visas. So you get a student permit. You would need to be engaged at a university level institution. They would not normally, you wouldn't normally qualify if you were just going to, say, a college or doing like a language course. It would have to be university level, and typically they want a full-time course. You can try and apply if you're in a part-time course, or if you get into a part-time course and you want to try and apply, it's not as likely to be successful. So we recommend if you're not doing a full-time course, that's not going to work very well. And other options, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just ask you, how much is the tax?
The tax.
If you are working and have a business, yeah.
So, that would be such a large question that we need a couple of hours to discuss it.
Okay.
That would be like,
It's not just like a going rate.
no, the tax rates vary depending on what sort of business you have, what sort of income you have, where that money comes from. When you've registered for any of the local statuses that get you tax relief here. I can definitely talk to you about this afterwards. We also have a lot of resources on our website, and we offer a free consultation if you want to find out about that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a huge topic.
Okay.
So,
Maybe we'll do that.
yeah, for sure. Come and speak to me afterwards. It's not a problem. Okay, so the other types of residency permits. If you have any sort of family connection to someone who already has a residency permit. So, for example, if you're maybe, let's say your husband or wife is Georgian, or even a foreigner who has already applied for a residence permit or can apply for one through the work residency permit program, you can then apply once they've got their permit to have family reunification. So if you are related to anybody or married to anybody here who already has any sort of permit, even the temporary residence permit, you can then apply to become a resident as well through them. So that's one option. And I think, am I forgetting? There's another one. Which one am I forgetting?
I mean, the investment, the protection
The investment one, yes, right. So the investment one, if you were thinking about buying property here, and I know not most people probably aren't, but if you were into that idea, because property prices here are pretty low, and they're even lower now, it's COVID recently, the prices have been going down. If you do buy property that is valued over $100,000, you can actually instantly apply for residency just based on owning property here. So obviously that's the very long-term version. So that's probably not the one that anyone here is going to be considering unless you're already thinking about property. But yeah, if you actually come with that intention, that's the option.
How much the amount? Sorry, I didn't.
$100,000 equivalent in local currency, which would be about 320,000 gel at the moment. I think 325, something like that. All right, so those are the main options if you wanted to get a residency permit. So I can talk through some of the more specific stuff with the work residency, but maybe we should get some questions first because it depends on what situation you guys are in.
Any specific course or any whatever, but just freelance, right? So employee, yeah.
So
what I can do? What's
So,
my way?
if you have a Georgian company that employs you,
No.
okay, but if anyone did, then that would be one option that they would then sponsor you as their employee. If you had your own company here, if you started a business here, that would be one option. If you wanted to start a business here, okay. Well,
Individual entrepreneurship, like
yes, this would work.
so on the basis of personal entrepreneurship, you can apply for working visa, right?
If you are an individual entrepreneur that is registered in Georgia, that would be classed as a business in that sense.
And automatically, I get the work permit.
You have to get revenue within 12 months within the company of 50,000 gel, so that's about $16,000 I think at the moment. So it's a little high, but it's not crazy. If your visa doesn't run out until like March or April next year, or especially if you've just arrived and your visa is going to last for like the next 10 or 12 months, then that sort of requirement is something that a lot of people can get to. So the money would come into your company up from the day you registered, everything you owe from the day you registered. Once you hit that 50,000 gel threshold, then you can start the application process. And
It's a long process.
the,
So if my visa, obviously I'm a Russian citizen and there is no visa requirements for me to live here, but I assume that this is sort of tourist visa.
you stamped,
Yeah.
One
yeah,
year.
you have the 365 days like everyone
And
else.
it expires in February. So if I, for example, open individual entrepreneurship here now,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's working for myself. And to be qualified for this program, for this working permit,
yeah.
I need to prove 12 months of certain
No, you don't need to prove 12 months at all. The second you make 50,000, then at that minute, you can then start applying. So about 16,000 US dollars.
50,000 job.
Yes, 50,000 gel. So
if you
it's
put in the bank 16,000, you're qualified.
not exactly. The company would have to legitimately earn that revenue through business activities. So if you are if you wanted to qualify within 4 months and your business makes 4,000 US dollars a month in turnover, you'd be able to qualify in 4 months. If you make 2,000 US dollars turnover, you'd be able to qualify in 8 months, essentially. So it is business turnover, not personal income. So if the business that you make has expenses, etc., that doesn't matter. It's not what you get out at the end; it's what flows into the business at the start.
So, but if I don't have that kind of money for a few next months for sure, like it doesn't matter what like.
Unfortunately, with this process, no, this one is only for people who either have an employment contract or will actually earn enough money by the time they need to make the application.
Can we just transfer those money from another bank account to?
Okay, hold on, please. Tom, would it be helpful if you repeat the question before you answer?
Sure.
That way,
Yes.
those people that aren't here and maybe are having a little bit more
Yeah.
problem hearing the questions are sure to understand what question we're answering.
Okay, yeah, so to repeat the question quickly, we're discussing if you opened an individual entrepreneurship business here now, how long would it take you to be able to make the residency application? Essentially, that's the main question. And what we're saying is that you have to, from the day you open that business, the second that business hits 50,000 gel, 50,000 wari in turnover, not income, but turnover of the business, it's at that point where you can then make the application, as long as that is within a 12-month period.
Along those same lines, I have a question from online regarding property investment. Does it have to be 100,000 at the time of purchase? If you buy at a lower value, renovate, and then have it revalued at 100,000, would that qualify?
The person who values the property, that's when the decision is made. So you'd have someone come in to value the property. So yes, if you improve the property and the market value goes up because of that, then there shouldn't be an issue.
But you can't apply for the future. So let's say you buy yesterday and then you are saying that I will start renovating after my application starts. You can't do that.
Yeah, it has to have already been done and revalued. I think that's
Yeah.
what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
Emily says, thank you.
Okay. No worries. Did you need more clarification on your question? Yeah. So I mean, as I said, unfortunately.
Still, it's like, it's not actually really.
It's not an idea for you.
No, it's not realistic for everybody, that there are some people who have enough time left on their visa and enough income that they can reach this qualification before there's going to be any issue. If you can't reach it, then obviously paying the fine when you leave is probably it's not the safest option, but it is an option that shouldn't have too many repercussions.
So I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier. Does it become suspicious if you transfer that amount in one lump sum?
Okay, so the question is, if you just transfer that money into your business, is that going to be considered suspicious or illegal? So
I
maybe.
can answer, maybe.
Yes.
So,
maybe.
like often the question is, if I just transfer my money from one account to another to my business account, does that count? That doesn't count because it's your own money. It's not money that you generate from like business activities, from active business activities, and that's more like capital increase rather than like generating turnover.
But if you have a contract with some company.
If you have a
for
contract,
services.
yeah,
And
that's
they
different.
transfer money.
Yes, it was $16,000 to provide some service, to
If you can,
commission for some service.
If you
if
can
you can
do
get
it,
a company to agree to pay you $16,000, no matter how you got them the money,
Sure. One
sure.
time
If you can get them
transaction,
to legitimately agree to pay you that money, I mean, the legality of that's going to be on yourself to decide how you feel about that. But technically, if the money goes into your business from another business or from a client, and you pay tax on it, which is 1% of the individual entrepreneur, so it's not crazy. But I guess 16,000, 1%, that's $1,600? No, $160. $160. So it's quite a cheap application if it costs you $160 to put the money in. As I said, like if someone found out you did it that way, I can't guarantee how the government would feel about it. But yes, if the tax was paid and it went in, then theoretically.
Sorry, just to clarify the legality of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been getting paid through from clients into a company. I'm just saying, can I transfer that payments that is sitting in that company to this one?
So no, because you've already earned the money and that's your personal money now. If you got that company to pay the money into your business, that would be okay. But you do also have to have the business registered here. I don't know if you've already done
I
that.
haven't completed the process right now.
No, yeah. So once the business is registered, it's only from the day that it's officially opened that you can then actually start counting against this 50,000.
Would something like a $16,000 business grant or angel investor grant count as well?
Sorry, say again.
Sorry. Something like a $16,000 business grant or angel investor grant count as well, Mr. Miller?
I don't know. That's a tricky one.
no, that will
It's-
not be.
It seems like capital
Yeah,
being added to
yeah,
the business.
no.
I think I would So it's not really business turnover as such. Yeah, so it can be tricky. I don't know, if you gave all the money back to the company and asked them to pay you again, sure, it seems quite dodgy to me, but I don't know. You'd have to make it work on paper for it to be something you can legitimately do. All right, any other questions? Concerns?
Sorry, just to you mentioned now taxes 1%. Is that on that 50,000 that you've made on that business
Yes.
that you've now registered and opened?
Yeah, so the question was about whether individual entrepreneurs, what is the 1% tax and how does it work essentially? So the 1% would be on turnover. So yes, 50,000 of turnover would be 1% of 50,500 job. It's not on final net income. So any expenses you had, you can't then pay tax afterwards. It is on the exact amount of money that comes into the company initially, regardless of expenses. So it's a little bit different from how a lot of us are probably aware of paying tax in other countries where you get taxed on your actual income. This is just on the turnover. But it does work out very well. If you don't have a lot of expenses, then 1% is still an incredibly good tax rate.
Sorry?
I think something's going on with the computer. Yeah.
I have the same problem as the lady here.
Yeah.
My visa will end at 6th of December, and I don't have a company here. I'm working as a freelancer.
Yeah.
What's the solution? That's what she was trying to ask.
Okay. Well, I mean, firstly, if you're working here as a freelancer and don't have a company here, you should have a company here, because otherwise you're technically operating a company here illegally. Although if you're leaving soon, it's not going to be something where you're likely to face many actual problems with the tax department. But if you're planning to stay here for any sort of long term, then yeah, if you plan to stay, you should get the company registered as soon as possible, because otherwise you'll be liable to pay 20% tax on your income rather than 1% tax if you went for that status with that we were talking about before. Because if you're not a registered business in Georgia, then there is just a standard flat tax that everyone pays of 20%. And that is on gross income, not net income. So basically turnover, any money that you receive from any company, you can't deduct anything from that. You have to pay tax on everything, which is a problem if you have a company that maybe you have a lot of expenses. Even though you've deducted those expenses, you have to pay tax on every dollar. And in theory, if you made a lot of money but had a lot of expenses, you could end up paying more tax than you actually earned this year. So that's the main problem with having to pay gross.
What's the solution for getting visa extension?
The solution for getting the extension at the moment is one of the things that I listed before. If you can't qualify through work permits, you the permits to cross and come back out, which means you have to have the $2,000 a month, or you can invite yourself with your business, but you can't do that with an individual entrepreneur because you'd be literally inviting yourself. I can clarify this a little bit more. I don't know if it's going to apply to that many people here, but if you have an LLC or corporation, LLCs are relatively affordable to set up as well, although the taxes are higher, which is why most freelancers don't go for that. If you have an LLC, in theory, someone else in the company can invite you back into the country as a business visitor. In theory, people have done it. It does work, but it could also get rejected if they look at the application and think it's suspect. With an individual entrepreneur, you can't invite yourself because the paperwork you have to provide is one person invites the person who's visiting. So that's a problem with that. So if you were planning on opening a limited company, LLC, rather than the individual entrepreneur, technically you can invite yourself back in, and it may or may not work. It has worked for some people. It does not always consistently work. For these ones, and also if you were going to try and do the remote work permit, where you have to have $2,000 a month in proven income or $24,000 US in a bank account somewhere, for those ones you have to cross the border and come back. But the idea is that you apply for the permit before you leave so that you know that the permit's been approved, so that once you leave you can come back quite quickly and not be concerned that you're going to be refused entry. That's the concept. But this one, as I've mentioned right at the start, is one that it's theoretically legal.
You don't need anything to come back.
Yeah.
You only need the stamp. You don't need a visa.
To come back, you need the permit.
Allows us to come without the visa.
No, you still get the visa on entry, but you have to have the permit.
Yes.
Yeah, once you have this permit, then the visa is granted to you automatically when you get to the border. So that's the concept at the moment. So the permits, for anyone who doesn't know exactly how they work, I know some people use them to get here. The permit is not a visa. It is not an extension. It is literally just you're allowed to come to passport control and get into the country as long as you qualify for a visa. So also, if you're from a country that doesn't qualify for the automatic stamp, you'd have to apply for a visa before you actually came here as well. We've now had a few clients who have done that. Their partner, travel partner going with them, has applied for a D1 visa, and they're allowed to enter on the basis of being a partner of someone who has the income proof and has got the permit. Which is another thing. If you know someone who has the income and they're willing to make you their travel partner, you can come in for free with them, basically, if you make the application. So maybe if you're a couple here, you don't have to be married. We've had fiancés come through. We've had other people who are friends, I guess you'd say.
Families.
Families, children, etc. Yeah.
You may have already answered this, but somebody online wants to know, for which nationalities is it possible to leave the country and come back 1 week later to get the 365-day stamp again? Can a German go to Paris and come back, or go wherever and come back?
So technically, I believe you have to come from your country of residence if you're on that list. So there's a list of 13 countries. Some of you might be from them. And I think then there's an additional 5 countries, which include France, Germany. France and Germany, they can come back without doing quarantine at the moment, whereas the other 13 countries would have to do 8 days in quarantine when they come back.
Is there a resource that has those countries listed
The
somewhere?
list is on our website. Which one
Okay,
is it?
so basically go to ExpatHub.GE.
I think it's called How to Enter During COVID. You'll find it, if you just Google how to enter during COVID, expat.ge, then the article will probably be in the top 2 or something there.
And are LLCs taxed on gross?
So they're taxed. You can deduct your expenses in most industries. You might be better person to answer this one.
So if you are the owner of the LLC and take out dividends from an LLC, then you have 15% on corporate level plus 5% on tax and dividends. And your LLC is not taxed before it's like the dividends are not distributed. So once you distribute the dividends, then you're going to be taxed.
It's a little bit complicated,
profit.
and something else we should probably talk about at the end because it's a little bit separate. But yeah, if you qualify for individual entrepreneur and you don't need the liability protection because you're in a low-risk industry, then for most people, unless you have a very high income and don't qualify for 1% tax, works out better. But there are a lot of reasons to have an LLC as well. I think we didn't quite answer the other question about the different countries.
I think that they said thanks, so
Okay,
I think
great.
we've answered that.
But yeah, you would need to return and fly back to the country that you're actually resident in for those 5 countries, Germany, France, and the Baltic countries. I believe if you came from a different country from that list, even though you have that passport, I think you'd still have to prove something extra or go through quarantine, I think it was. So yeah, if you want to avoid quarantine, you can do that.
They go into isolation, not quarantine.
Yes, sorry, the 13 countries go into isolation now. Yeah, they've just changed that rule. They did change that rule a few weeks ago.
Emily Lush is asking, do you think the December 31st date for tourist visa holders will be extended again?
So
Any thoughts on that? Because I think there's a lot of us that probably fall underneath that, I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, we spoke to some of the agents in some of the offices, the government before November 1st, before the election, and they told us that there would be a review after November 1st to decide if there will be a further extension beyond 31st of December. That has not been announced at this time. I'm pretty confident that there will be an extension. I don't know how long it will be. It might only be another couple of months. They might roll it on a couple of months at a time if the situation continues to be as bad as it is now, but we just don't know. So if you want the safest option and you qualify, then obviously getting temporary residency is the best choice.
When supposedly they will announce?
Well, they told me that we'd get an announcement after November 1st, but now there's protests and everything going on. There seems to be a lot of other things delaying them from making these announcements. So it's already been a couple of weeks almost, or a week and a half, and we still don't have any information on this. So we can only assume they haven't made a decision, and we don't know when they will. But I mean, they are going to have to make the decision before late December, I assume, though otherwise it's not even worth making the decision at that point. So we'll keep you guys updated. We'll definitely let Candy know, and she can share in the groups here if we do hear anything. And we are monitoring this because it is really important for a lot of people. We hope that they will make those extensions. Fingers crossed. Beating to the punch, Jess.
I entered recently on the digital nomad entry permit.
Yeah.
And did not know I could bring in a travel partner at the time.
Okay.
Now that I'm already here, could I get a travel partner in under this program of traveling separately for me, or do they have to enter with me at the same time?
Okay, so the question for those online is about the digital nomad remote work permit. And if you've already arrived in Georgia, can you get a travel partner in even though you're already here? Technically, the permit is it's a single entry permit, and it's used when you enter, and then that's invalidated. So any application you made would have had to be done before you arrived in the country. What you could do is reapply, leave the country, grab your travel partner, and come back. That should legally work. I don't know anyone who's tried that, but like, legally that should work.
You said it was single entry.
Yes. If you go out of the country and then try to come back in, you shouldn't be able to come back in on the remote work.
So how could he?
You would have to reapply for the same permit a second time.
Okay.
So every time you want to come back in, you need to reapply. We did have this question before from a few clients, and we have confirmed that it is a single entry permit only, and you would need to reapply if you wanted to come back. So that's the information we've been given by the government anyway. I don't think there's another option with that. So that would be your main choice if you wanted to apply again. If you've still got all the paperwork that you had before, there shouldn't be any reason you'd be denied, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue, I would have thought. Yes, you were.
Yeah, it was also the same question about travel partner. So if someone has a permit to come, do they finance the travel partner, or how it actually works?
Okay, so the question is about the total amount of income needed for the joint application of someone on the permit.
What are the reasons? How do you prove that you're a travel partner? And kind of what do you need for that?
So thus far, the proof has not been a lot. We've had people come in, as I said, that are not married, not related, and they literally just provide the passport of the person that needs to accompany them, and they've been approved.
So just come like that. No
Just
need.
consent.
You need to put it in the application. So when you make the initial application for the remote permit, you need to include their name, and you're likely to get a follow-up from the government with an email saying that you need to provide proof of who they are, which is their passport. If they're entitled to an entry via the normal visa program without applying for an actual visa, then there hasn't been any problem. And as I said, for someone who's brought his girlfriend, they're definitely not related, they're definitely not married. He's already been approved, and she's been approved, and she applied for a visa because she didn't qualify for the standard entry stamp because she's from the Philippines, so she didn't qualify.
So just traveling together, it already qualifies as a travel partner.
This has been our experience so far. They don't explicitly state this on the website, but we have proven cases now of people that have been approved, even though there's no relation at all, just girlfriend, boyfriend.
If you have a Georgian girlfriend, does that help?
Yeah.
I don't think it's really relevant because Georgians can enter on their own anyway with a passport.
No, not for the Georgian, for the foreign.
No.
Well, I mean, if you were married to a Georgian, you could apply for family reunification here. Having a girlfriend, you would not be able to apply for any sort of residency being based here, and you wouldn't be able to get into the country just based on having someone like that. You need to be married, really.
If any Georgian friends or Georgian family, can they kind of sponsor or give any letter or invitation or something for a foreigner to stay?
You would need to be related to get any sort of. Sorry. Yeah.
Another question about the travel partner. Is there any restrictions on it being the same sex?
So we did actually have this question from someone else as well, a couple trying to travel from South Africa who are actually married. And although the staff didn't say there was any specific, there's no specific actual legislation discussing this. I believe same-sex union in Georgia is illegal, and that's why people were concerned that it might not be allowed. But all the representatives we spoke to said theoretically there's no problem with that. And also they're allowing travel partners who are not in any way connected. So in theory, you could just say it was your friend as well if you were concerned that there might be some sort of retribution for declaring that you were married. As far as we know, it's possible. The person who did ask me about it has not arrived here yet or applied, I think, in the end. I think they decided to wait. So I don't know for sure if there would be any problem, but there's no legal reason why it shouldn't be accepted that we can see. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question about digital nomad permits. So
Yes.
there is a rule of $2,000 per month. What kind of custom there?
Sorry. The longest deciding these questions are more important than yours.
Too boring.
All right, sorry, say it again.
Digital nomad permit. And what kind of, there is a rule of $2,000 per month.
Yes.
What kind of permit they're asking? And it's like for 6 months, for 1 year, like how it works.
Okay, so the question is about the amount of income and what proof you need to prove the income in order to qualify for the digital nomad permit. So essentially, the $2,000, there's a lot of different options. Okay, so you could be an employee where you have an employee contract that shows you will be earning over the next 6 months or more, or 12 months, $2,000 a month. So you're actually employed, so you can prove that you will be making that money. You can also show that you have received $2,000 a month, at least in income over the previous 12 months before applying. We've also had quite a few people now then just off having $24,000 in a bank account and no actual further questions about what they're actually earning or who they're earning from. That's actually worked.
So I can show my savings.
Yes, you could show your savings
For 1 year.
if you have $24,000 in a savings account. That's actually worked with multiple people now. At least 3 people I've spoken to.
Here or outside?
In any bank account, as long as it's a legal bank account and you can prove the document is genuine, then it's actually worked.
So, you said prove the document is legitimate. What is the criteria for that?
The criteria would probably be decided by the person assessing it. If they think what you provided is fake, then they're going to ask
But it's
questions.
not like sometimes it's a bank stamp or.
No, I mean, if you did have a properly stamped piece of paper that came from your bank and you've got them to actually stamp and sign it, that's obviously more legitimate and you've got no reason why they would decline that. But most people have just printed something off from their online banking and that's actually worked without any issue. I haven't heard of anyone who comes to us saying that that didn't work for them. So just printing off a proper bank statement seems to work. Yeah.
Just wanted to share, I got in by using my stock investments as an entry criteria. The combination of sales I made over the last 12 months and the total amount. And I got no problems at all.
Yeah, they've been very lenient on how they assess this. As long as they can see there is some sort of means, which adds up to roughly $24,000 a year or coming in the future, that amount of money, they seem to be just allowing people in. Yeah.
We've got a question, how to stay longer than stamp legally without PCR testing?
I think right now, be French, German, or from one of the Baltic states. That's literally the only way that I'm aware of you could get in without having that. Is this someone who has COVID and is concerned? They don't want to leave their apartment for their stamps running. Hopefully they'll be better by the 31st of December, so they won't have to worry about that. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can I apply from here?
So this is what we're hoping to test soon. Because legally speaking, there is no reason why you couldn't apply before you leave and then come back on it. We can't find anything in any legislation that would make that illegal or any reason why they would decline it.
Right.
So right now, we have no reason to think it's a problem. But as we said, most people only arrived in the last couple of months. They only started that program a couple of months ago. And the people who need to leave and cross the border, well, the extension's until the 31st of December now, so most people don't want to have to go through the process of making this application unless they find out that that extension date won't be moved forward. So if you want to try it, we should keep in touch, and I'd be very excited to help you with the application and make sure that you got back in, and if you had any problems, we'd be able to then report to everyone exactly what happens So yeah, definitely I can grab your email at the end if you think you want to try that route.
Once you have the digital nomad permit, how quickly do you have to use it?
So at the moment, there's actually no expiry date. It's a very new program, so things could change at any point. We don't really know. But even when you put the entry date on the application, which I think they've only introduced that recently, before you didn't even have to put an entry date, they're still not enforcing it if you come 2 or 3 weeks after the entry date or whatever, there doesn't seem to be any problem. Apparently, I mean, there was someone else here who arrived on that, but apparently the process when you arrive, if you have that permit specifically, they treat you a lot better than everyone else on all the other permits. Some people have reported it was almost like VIP treatment. They got moved to the front of the line, they got taken out of the main group of people and herded off somewhere else so they didn't have to be in the general group of other people, and apparently it was a very good experience. We've had lots of positive reports on how it worked. Yeah, but did that answer the question, or was there something else?
No, that was exactly.
Okay, great.
Got about 8 more minutes, so a couple more questions.
Okay, please. My friend is Syrian.
Yeah.
And he has Kuwaitian residency. He's trying to get students permit to stay here, but
Like we asked them, they say to us like.
that Syrians
Syrian
have
passport.
another condition. Is that true or?
This is something I would have to look into because we don't have a lot of clients from Syria. It's not something that we've had to deal
It's
with
not
before.
something, they said it's not something official, but because Syria opened Abkhazia embassy, they are trying to make things harder for them.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that there have been problems with some Middle East states where the government have made it harder than for people from the EU, but I couldn't comment specifically on Syria at all. And why these applications are getting denied is actually quite hard to say because
He doesn't, he's not denied.
well, some people have been denied, and it's something we're
It's
trying to
still,
investigate at the
still,
moment.
what's the name?
We still active for 3 months.
Active states for 3 months. It doesn't have response.
Sure.
And I'm a student here.
Yeah, it's still something that I can't answer immediately for you, unfortunately, because I said we haven't really had any cases from Syria, so I couldn't tell you if there's a specific reason there's a problem. But if you follow all of the steps, or if you need any advice about that, we do have an article. I think, oh no, the student one is not on that article. But if you chat with me after this, I can maybe try and give you a couple of extra pointers. But yeah, it's not something we're familiar with, unfortunately, not for Syrian passports or Kuwait. Sorry about that. So, right, but yeah, we have a chat afterwards if you like, and see if we can figure something out. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, I came late. Just to orient on this. With the digital nomad visa, is it possible to also have a partner come and accompany you?
Yes, we had a very long discussion, so I won't repeat too much of it, but yes, you can definitely bring a partner, and you don't have to be related or married in order to do that. Anyone else?
One more question.
Yeah.
I'm here like a tourist, and I heard that I can I can apply for like extend my stay here without any like a digital nomad permission or something. Is it possible? There is a successful cases about it.
It's not something you're likely to qualify for. The only extensions I'm aware of are the ones due to if you're in a serious situation, such as caught in a natural disaster. COVID won't count on this. Or if you're sick and you're in hospital and you can't actually leave because of that. It's not just something you can walk up to the Justice Hall and ask for an extension on, unfortunately. Yeah, the idea is that you pay the fine when you leave. If you overstay, that's the main one. So as I said, I can still say for anyone who is concerned that they don't qualify for any of the other things, thus far there is no reason to think that just paying the fine is genuinely going to be a big problem. As I mentioned at the start, it's only if for some reason you got into trouble, maybe you were arrested, they checked your passport and realized that you were over the stay and you got deported for that sort of reason. It's quite low risk. If you got deported, you'd be banned from re-entering Georgia.
Not deported. The Polish catch you finished visa.
They will make the decision for themselves. Technically, because you're here illegal, that is why they would deport you.
Even if you pay the fine?
Well, the fine is for, so this is the problem with the legislation. It's a bit confusing. You're allowed to legally leave the country and then be fined. But if you're caught here illegally, they have the right to deport you. So that doesn't mean they will. They might go, oh, it's COVID, don't worry about it. but we won't know until after December 31st, because at the moment no one's here illegally. We're going to find out after that. And because it was so easy to renew the visa before just by going in and out, there's just not a lot of cases. So we don't know if they're going to enforce it, or if they're going to just say, oh, yeah, it's okay, well, you can stay here a few more months, or they'll deport you, but they won't fine you, and they won't actually enforce the 2 to 5 year ban. So we can't guarantee. All I can tell you is that's what the law says. So it is a risk in that sense, but we're hoping that it won't be that serious, and that they will allow people not to be deported in that way. But we just don't know yet. We're going to find out in a couple of months. Hopefully it won't be a problem.
I did have one more question on the remote entry. If they're bringing 2 people under one request, can they both make 1,000 and have it be a combined? Or it's just the applicant has to show 1,000?
The applicant has to show the 2,000. If those 2 people wanted to put their savings together in one account, that probably will work, as long as it's not really obvious that they put it in 3 days before the application and then are about to take it out again. I mean, that still might actually work, because they are being quite lenient on this, but that's more suspicious and probably not the best plan. But yeah, it's the applicant's income that matters. The travel partner can have 0 income, be completely dependent with no income, doesn't matter.
Prove this bank account. Another assets are not counted.
It has to be financial, so it has to be a number. It can't be that you own a house somewhere or something. It has to be actual
like
cash.
PayPal,
Like
PayPal, for example.
PayPal. I mean, PayPal's not technically a bank, so I don't know. I couldn't tell you for sure if they'd accept it. They might do. If your income comes through PayPal and you can show money's consistently coming in $2,000 a month, I don't see any reason why they would say no to that, because that's a legitimate way to get paid. But if you just happen to have $24,000 in a PayPal account, that seems pretty dodgy to me anyway. Like, you shouldn't do it. It's not protected. If you lose that money, you won't get any insurance on that. So not a good place to keep your money. Okay.
Time for one more? Anyone? Okay.
And if anybody wanted to come up and ask about the tax stuff, I know there's a few questions at the start, then please come up afterwards. I'll be more than happy to give you some pointers. As I said, if you are planning to stay here, then it's something you should sort out sooner rather than later, because the longer you leave it, you then find you have a lot of back taxes to pay, and that's one of the main problems. A lot of clients that come to us, they didn't realize that if they didn't register their business straight away, they're going to owe one hell of a lot of extra tax than if they just registered the week they got here. So it's something worth discussing.
If you have money on this one, you can prove that this is your account.
Yeah, if you have 24,000, you mean?
Is it a legit way to prove?
Well, if you have a financial statement that proves you have it, of course, yeah. And any financial statement that's a proper institution. Yeah, if you've got something like that, then yes, yeah, you can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Quick housekeeping, ExpatHub.GE, if you guys have further questions.
And we have handouts for everybody.
Get a hold of them. They can help you through whether it's business or residency or visas or whatever. They can help answer those questions for you. Thank you guys all for coming. Thank you to those of you that joined us online. I am going to, this was recorded today, so I will be putting it up for viewing, and I'll post the link in the event for you guys if you have questions or didn't quite catch an answer or whatever. So, thanks guys.
Thanks everyone. Yeah, if you want a handout, for those of you who are interested